How's it going, friends? Welcome back to Mindful Music Maker. I'm gonna play some tunes for you here while some folks are signing on. I've got this sweet new Bell Muse Wildwood electric mandolin, so I figured I would try it out on the stream tonight and see how she does. You can put your oohs and ahs into the chat box, by the way, over this fine new electric instrument from my friends over in the UK. Alrighty. Let's see how loud this is going to be. That's loud. Alrighty. About there, about there, about there. Here we go. Here we go, folks. See you on the other side. Oh man, that's fun to play on. Thanks for entertaining me on that one, folks. Usually I know I bust out a nice soothing acoustic instrument on the stream, but I've been excited to kind of show this thing to the world. I've been talking with the Bell Muse guys, Chris, namely, the guy that builds the instruments, for the last month or so, and was really excited to have this instrument shipped over to me. If you're interested in an electric mandolin, you should definitely check them out because, in my opinion, they're one of the more kind of like affordable options out there. But they're also hand built, and just in case you couldn't see, it's a neck through body design, so like really highly skilled construction, very stable, and all that kind of stuff. So if you're into electric mandolins, you should definitely check out the Bell Muse guys. I just realized my microphone's a little out of alignment, so I'm gonna do this real quick. Hopefully you didn't hear too many bumps. I'm just checking the chat over here. Elliot says, grab a slide and give us some Derek Trucks or Bonnie Raitt. Maybe sometime in the near future, Elliot. I gotta say, as a guy who's been playing stringed instruments since he was 8, like, the slide has never, like, I tried to play lap steel, I've tried to play bottleneck guitar. For some reason, that just, like, I didn't get those genes, you know. I was born too far north of the Mason-Dixon line, I think, to really get the the slide playing down, man. I really love Sam Bush when he busts out the slide electric mandolin or this National mandolin and plays some on there, though. I think it's great. Well, let's check in with the chat, see who's there. Johnny's with us. He says, holy smokes, making us jealous on a weekly basis. Oh, man. And double check the end pin. I got to tell you guys, too. Ugh. Talk about a, like, mindless moment the other day. I had my brand spanking new Red Diamond F strapped on, and I was like looking at my basement floor. Everybody knows I joke about doing these streams in my basement, right? And there was a house centipede running across the floor, which they ick me out, and I like want to know where all of them are when I see one come into the room. So I would like bend over to kind of look at it, because it was a big one, you know, and just ever so slightly, and because the humidity had changed, the end pin for my strap button had shrunk a little bit, and it slipped out, and the mandolin just went tumbling onto the ground. And I was like, it was like one of those slow motion moments, you know what I mean? You like see in TV commercials where like, you know, you're just like diving after this thing. And you can actually see I've got a little bit of a boo-boo on my index finger. That broke some of the fall. But man, I scratched up my new mandolin. The tone guard put a big gash in the back of it. Luckily, it's just in the varnish. I sent a picture to Don McRosty, and he was like, psh, no big deal. Bring it down to me next week. We'll get it fixed. But, man, that definitely made me want to have a heart attack. Who else do we got in the chat here? Lewis is with us from Leavenworth. Good to see you out there, buddy. Traveling man. Nice. Elliot's got one in here too. He said he meditated in the sauna today, and rather than emptying his mind, found himself seeing that he could build an E-sus4 off of an inversion inside of his head. Dude, that's a moment of true enlightenment right there. Elliot's getting into those chord extensions, baby. Hey, Leslie and Matt are with us out there in Asheville, North Carolina. I saw that on Instagram that they were traveling down that way today. Thanks for joining us, gang. Good to see you out there. Nice. I think we're caught up. Well, gang, I think we all know the drill here today. It's great to see you folks out there. Thanks so much for joining us. I think what we're going to do is dive straight into the meditation portion of the evening, because I know I could use it. And then if you guys got any questions or anything, we can mess around with that, or just get into some ramblings like I always do here every week. Before the meditation, I'm going to grab a sip of water, and then I'm going to verbally narrate every other action that I perform going forward. I am going to put my water bottle down, I am going to straighten myself up, and now I am going to lead a meditation. Alright, gang. So, I think it looks like we've got a bunch of veterans out there tonight, so I'll keep this brief, but if, just as a reminder, we need to get into our good meditation posture. If you're sitting in a chair like I am, then make sure that you're kind of up on your sits bones, the kind of two nubby parts of your pelvis. Make sure that they're bearing all of your weight. There's a nice 90-degree curve in your knees, not overextended, not over scrunched in. And then the thing we want to do, right in the crown of your head, right there, imagine there's a string. Draw it up to the ceiling like someone's playing marionette with you. That tucks your chin in, puts a curve in your lumbar, your shoulders go back. And let's meditate for 5 minutes. We'll see you on the other side. Always like to begin my meditation with a few deep breaths in out. And let your breathing resume its normal, natural pace. Count your breaths if you can. Keep your mind focused on that anchor. If your mind wanders, just come back. No judgment. Come back to the breath. Tough one for me today. Mine's all over the place. You know the drill, though, gang. If you're out there and you meditated with us, give yourselves a rating on a scale from 1 to 10. How do you think you executed your meditation? And like I mentioned last week, I'm kind of rethinking how we rate ourselves, because part of the thing is non-judgment. So I guess rating yourself is a form of judgment. But it's more about checking in, we'll call it, with your meditation to see if you felt like you were struggling a lot, then maybe it's a 1. But if you felt like you were able to allow thoughts to float over top of the anchor and stay focused on the breath and all that kind of stuff, then maybe you were closer to a 10. So let us know in the chat out there how you did with the meditation. I'm going to give myself a solid 6 today. Becky's leading the pack as usual out there. I like it. Leslie and Matt says 4 and 5 did a silent meal meditation. So this is crazy, right? But I actually had one of my meditation coaches one time bring up the idea of an eating meditation. How you can use the act, and I think this is great. I'm actually going to piggyback on what Leslie was talking about on Instagram today for my little spiel here tonight. So I hope Leslie is hoping to chime in. But doing an eating meditation is a great way to help us slow down, right, Leslie? This is what I was doing. I kind of was chatting on Leslie's last Instagram post. She was asking, what are you guys doing out there to slow down in your life? And one thing that I did this morning, my in-laws just bought us a new espresso machine. And for anyone that knows me, I'm almost as crazy about good coffee as I am about playing music and good instruments. So having an espresso machine back in my life has really been the bee's knees. And I was doing this thing where I would have to take after each sip of espresso, I wasn't allowed to down the whole thing in one go, which I am totally capable of. But after each sip of espresso, I had to think of 5 descriptive words at least for the process of consuming that espresso. So how did it taste? How did it feel? All that kind of stuff before I was allowed to take another sip. So yeah, eating meditations, drinking meditations, I think they're all good. That's all I was getting at. Yeah, Johnny out there, 3, couldn't focus on more than 3 breaths, suffering from COVID brain. Yeah, I hope that gets better for you, Johnny. We were talking about that in our private lesson earlier today. He's on the back end of a bout with COVID, and I had that last February, man. That was it was not fun. And it was definitely a month before I felt like my mind came out of the fog. Nice, Brent just joined us. Good to see you out there, Brent. Hope you're doing well, buddy. Nice. Brent says he's wearing his Blue Picky Fingers podcast shirt. For those of you that don't know about this podcast out there, you should definitely check out my buddy Keith Billick's podcast, the Picky Fingers Banjo Podcast. Even if you're not a banjo player, I think it's an amazing just kind of modern documentation of bluegrass and other styles of banjo players out there. Keith does a really great job interviewing pretty much the top names in the biz, from newcomers all the way up to seasoned pros and stuff like that. So you should definitely check out the Picky Fingers Banjo Podcast. And speaking of podcasts, this isn't a great time to hard announce this because I don't have anywhere for you to go for it yet, but the season 1 of the Mindful Music Maker podcast has actually kind of officially begun production. So if you folks like these weekly live streams, then I've got a show that's probably going to come out, I would imagine sometime early next year, maybe early spring would be a good target for it. But I'm going to have about 10 episodes ready for you then in that time, and release them probably bi-weekly to start. But if you all have been an inspiring community, and it's honestly, hosting these live streams every week has just left me with more questions about how to deepen my mindfulness practice. And so what that led me to do was kind of seek out some of the teachers that I've had and other mindfulness experts, not even people that are related to music, but people that I think can help us be better music makers and better people in general. So if you're into something like that, then if you haven't already, go to hayesgriffin.com and sign up for the mailing list. There should be a pop-up that comes up on the page if you've not joined the mailing list for the first time. But yeah, hayesgriffin.com. Just go sign up for the mailing list there, and you'll get in the loop for all the happenings for Mindful Music Maker Podcast. I'm really excited to bring this show out, and I think my goal is to really just help people. It's a little selfish because I'm doing this stuff for selfish reasons because I want to get better at music and my mindfulness practice, but I think it can help you guys too. So hopefully it's good. Sweet. Well, gang, as I kind of alluded to a minute ago, I don't see any questions popping in the chat or anything like that, but Leslie on her Instagram feed really kind of inspired me earlier today. I was thinking about this, kind of wondering what I was going to talk about on the stream tonight, and she asked this question to all of their followers as they were traveling down to North Carolina for this retreat that they're hosting this weekend. Like, what are you doing to slow down in your life? And I think that's a great question to ask because virtually everything else that we're presented with in our lives is asking you, what are you doing to speed up? Right? I feel like there aren't too many fail-safes, at least as far as like things go on the internet here, to ask you that question. What are you doing to slow down in your life? And that really got me thinking. I put out that kind of cheeky little thing about my espresso this morning because I did actually do that. I was like, just kind of wanting to savor that. But I don't know if any of you feel this way out there. This is I know it's probably a cliche to talk about at this point, but in this modern digital age, it seems like our time and resources are becoming even more crunched. And I kind of feel that way because I wake up to an email inbox of like 30 to 70 emails every day. And I have private students that I teach, and I do live streams where I interact with a bunch of people and stuff like that. So it's like the world is way more connected, which means that you can interface with a lot more people than you used to be able to, even passively, right? So even if you're just like scrolling through Instagram and Facebook, you're kind of like passively getting into this time warp, right? This kind of like faster, more kind of thing. And this has really been something that's kind of like been getting on how do I want to say, coming to the front of my mind over the last 2 months. A lot of you out there have seen my like shorts videos or my reels that I post on Instagram. That's kind of like where I'm putting a lot of my efforts these days to try and make at least one of those a week. And the more I do that and the more I research other reels to kind of like think of good ideas to like make videos for you folks, the more I find myself getting sucked into this machine that I was just talking about. It's hard to even just kind of like passively observe things in that ecosystem and not get totally sucked in, because the point of this digital media is to kind of immediately give you a dopamine rush, immediately pull you in, and immediately get you to keep scrolling, right? And keep going faster and faster, So this is one of those things that I really personally struggle with, especially as a content creator and someone who I'm doing this work to try and better myself as a mindful person and a musician, but I have to engage with all of these mechanisms and, kind of digital tools that have different priorities than my own. So I thought tonight it could be cool to talk about, and I really want this to be a two-way conversation because I'm looking to you folks for some inspiration here too, to kind of talk about, like what can we do as music makers and citizens of the planet Earth to kind of slow down a little bit and be a little more mindful of just our lives and our daily interactions. It would be great to keep the conversation on topic with music, but if anyone out there has some ideas or some thoughts to get the conversation started, I would love to see it in the chat. Like, what do you do personally to kind of slow yourself down and put yourself more in the present moment? Because that's really, I think, what Leslie was getting at with her question. It was phrased in this kind of, what are you doing to slow down moment, but like, you could also say, what are you doing to be more mindful? Because being mindful is slowing down and putting your focus on the present moment, right? Also, I see that there's coffee conversation in the chat, and I got to get on that. Oh, man. This is, yes. Leslie, you were like, it's like I fed you all of my, like, answers tonight. So she says, when we're in the van, we hand grind coffee and do pour overs. Very, and then here's the key word, ritualistic. So we're going to come back to that word because that was one of my answers for slowing down tonight. Lewis says hand grind in our van too, then French press. I dig it, man. Yeah. Matt, I love it. Matt, you're the man. So Matt says, also sometimes slowing down a little and resting can ultimately make you faster in the long run. This is something interesting because I've been talking with some people. My dad was a coach forever, so he's kind of like, he's just as into athletics as I am into music, you know? And I've kind of been asking Dad, I'm like, I've been having trouble shedding some pounds from COVID. Here's what my workout regimen looks like. What should I do? And the first question that he asked was, how much rest time are you getting? And I was like, Dad, we're talking about losing weight here. How much rest time am I getting? Like whatever. He's like, no, seriously, how much sleep are you getting every night? And how many days between like strength workouts and stuff like that do you take? And that kind of opened my mind. I started doing a little more reading on it, and like rest is actually one of the most important things to like sculpting your body or whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? Like losing weight and getting into a better habit of taking care of your body. So yeah, that's kind of, to piggyback on what Matt says, I think we can see an analogy between these two things, right? Like, rest helps your body kind of recharge in that kind of physical sense for exercise and losing weight and all that kind of stuff. But like the mind needs it too, I think, we can always get into the habit of like, there's always one more thing to do for work for the day, or there's always one more thing to practice, or this and that and the other. But sometimes your mind is so frantic that you're not going to get anything out of doing those things until you just rest and give yourself the space to actually take on that new task, right? I love it. Matt dropping the wisdom out there. This is great. Johnny says slowing down some Tony Rice to try and transcribe it. That was one of the things we were talking about earlier today. Anyone out there who's trying to transcribe and be a more mindful musician, like absolutely use that gear icon on YouTube and slow things down. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's like you can see it in your window right now. I don't know if you can slow this down since it's a live stream right now. Yeah, I'm looking at it. So yeah, you click the gear icon, you click playback speed, and then you can adjust it down from there. Number one greatest feature on YouTube and most other video platforms, so do it. Johnny says, more seriously though, I go for a walk in the woods, usually hunting for mushrooms. You don't find mushrooms when you take a fast, mindless walk through the woods. Absolutely, dude. Yeah. I didn't know Johnny was a forager. Actually, I think I did out there. I may have seen some Instagram photos from him as well. Let me know where your morel spot is, dude. Johnny says, you really need to slow down, and when you do, you become fascinated again with the magic of the natural world that we have as children. You have to slow down to truly see things. It's amazing what you see when you take time to really stop and look around. Absolutely, man. I knew Johnny was going to say that. Never. He's never going to show me his morel spot. Well, at least share one of your morels with me the next time you grab some, dude. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I think that's kind of an interesting thing. That's Johnny's process here is kind of like my meditation coach Lama Adam Berner was talking about, using curiosity as kind of a mindfulness tool, right? So if you use curiosity to kind of engage with your immediate surroundings, then that immediately slows you down and pulls you into the present moment, right? That's something that I try to do every now and again, is like in my studio, I'll try and notice something new, and kind of focus on that for a minute. Like, how did that get there? What's this? You know what I mean? But I think Johnny's got a great one. Anytime you can engage with nature, I never feel bad about that. And I know Leslie and Matt will jump on board with that too. Yeah. Brent says, I've just retired, so I have the luxury of spending my mornings mostly walking, reading, and writing. Don't hate me. I put in my time with the man. Oh, I love it, Brent. Yeah. That's funny. Aiden Schnell is out there with us. Good to see you, Aiden Schnell. He's another one of my former private students. Now he's on to bigger and better things at the Berklee College of Music in Boston. That's great, man. I like what Brent has to say, though, and I don't think you have to be retired to do some of these things. You know what I mean? I find it hard for me when I get up in the morning and have my first cup of coffee. I'm like in go mode. I'm like, I need to get on the computer, and I need to start typing, and I need to start playing, and I need to start doing this, you know? But I've actually forced myself to start meditating first thing in the morning and then practicing first thing in the morning, because I feel like those are slow things that are in and of themselves mindfulness practices. So it kind of puts me on the right wavelength for the rest of the day. Then I eat my lunch. I teach a few lessons. I go for a walk. I try to stand outside for at least a few minutes every day and see what's going on there. I'm seeing some themes here, by the way, like Johnny's in nature, Brent's in nature. I know Leslie and Matt are in nature all the time. So this is good stuff, folks. Yeah, and then Brent said, oh man, he's dropping the real knowledge out here tonight too. When it comes to playing, I got to remember that you can't play it fast if you can't play it slow. Like rule number 1 in anybody's book, man. Like, you know, there is a point, right, Brent, where like to play something fast, you have to play it fast. But if your left hand and your right hand don't know where they're supposed to be going in the first place, then why are you trying to play it that fast? It's just going to sound like, you know... Which is what I sound like most of the time when I try and play something too fast before I've actually learned it. I love it. Lewis says, I'm retired also. If I slow down anymore, I'll be stopped. Nice. Oh, Lewis has another good one out here, too. I think this is a good one for musicians, like altering something in your technique, you know? So he says, changing my pick grip has slowed me down, back to basics and keeping it musical in my practice. Oh, Loco Joe out there. Any room for a late entry? Always, my friend. Good to see you. We're just talking about ways right now, Loco Joe, that you can, like mechanisms you can use in your daily life to slow down and kind of be more mindful and engaged with your immediate surroundings. So you can probably tell that by the chat. But, we've got a lot of good answers so far. And one thing that I'm noticing here, too, you know, a lot of this is reminding me of that book, Chatter, that I've recommended a few times. Ethan Kross is the author of this book, and he's I want to say a psychologist. I could be wrong by that. But he's a professor up at the University of Michigan. And he, psychology department. In that book, he kind of talks about how the voice in your mind can take control and lead you into like negative thought and kind of like behavior patterns, right? And the more that you feed that voice in your mind, the deeper the rut is cut, you know what I mean? And the harder it is to get out of the habits and the kind of routine of that voice, like feeding you a bunch of crap. But there was an interesting study that he did with like the projects, I believe, in New York City. They were talking about how ones that had apartments in those kind of towers that had a view of greenery, people were less likely to be depressed and more likely to kind of be able to control the chatter in their minds than people who had a view of like a gray wall. So there's something about the human mind and nature that's very interconnected. I don't think he had much of many findings or much of a hypothesis beyond the fact that like greenery and nature is just good for our mental health. But I like that everyone out there is kind of talking about being in nature and using that as an opportunity to be mindful. Because if you are, I mean, heck, man, just go outside right now. Like, on my run today, I actually went slower than normal because I was looking at all the trees in my neighborhood and like the kind of color gradients that are being formed by the leaves. I know I sound like a stoner or something right now, but it's like, it's seriously beautiful if you stop and look at that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? And kind of take the opportunity to slow down and soak all those things in. So nature, that's a good thing to help us slow down. I like that. Nature is a great thing. Let me catch up in the chat here and make sure that I haven't missed anything. Oh, nice. We got some Berkeley connections out there. Elliot, welcome to the indolent class. I like that. That's why we keep Elliot around. He's the jokester, man. But there was one word that I was going to bring up earlier that Leslie kind of mentioned, and I thought would be cool. And this also relates to that book Chatter I was talking about by Ethan Kross. Nestor, I see you just joined the chat. I hope you know about this book, Chatter by Ethan Kross. You have to know about this one, right? Like, it's a psychology thing, so I assume that Nestor knows because he knows all things psychology. But one thing that Ethan talks about in the book that they saw as like a kind of device that could help people mitigate the chatter in their minds was ritualistic behavior. So if you have some kind of ritual or mantra that you can do surrounding certain activities, or even when you notice that the voice inside of your head is kind of taking over, that like negative voice that tells you you're a piece of crap and you'll never get good at the electric mandolin and all that kind of stuff. Oh, Nestor says, sorry, I got nothing. You got to check this book out, dude. I think you'll read it in like a day. But ritualistic behavior is one of the things that Ethan kind of mentions in this book that can really help with the chatter. So like the thing that I do, like my little ritual in the morning is I try to find my meditation seat whenever I sit down to practice. That's my little ritual. You know what I mean? So I don't just like sit in my practice chair and like grab the mandolin and start wailing at it. You know what I mean? Like my ritual is to sit down, and we talked about this before with meditation too, like setting an intention with your meditation, you know, like some kind of dedication for like what you hope to get out of the session. So I try to do that at the beginning of my practice session in order to kind of engage with this ritualistic type of behavior. And I can't say that I'm like any better at being in the moment, but I haven't gotten any worse as a result of it. So that's been fun to kind of experiment with. But you folks might have a different ritual that you might want to do. If you are a practicing musician like me, I would say experiment with that one, because you're going to sit down and practice at some point, right? And what harm could come from like finding a nice relaxed posture and setting an intention for your practice? Like that's the whole kind of point of practice, right? So maybe that's a good one for you. Aiden says, I've always found that when I'm practicing new stuff, I'll jump into old flashy stuff, and it's almost like I'm performing when nobody's there. I have to remind myself that there's value in not knowing. I like that, dude. Yeah, man. That's great, Aiden. Yeah. And that's like, Aiden and I have actually, I know we've talked about this before, like, what's the point of practice if you're playing all the old stuff, right? Practice is the time for when we like are trying to sound bad, you know, play all that new crap and all that stuff. That's great though, buddy. And listen to Aiden. Did I mention he's a student at Berkeley? Brent says, I played terribly at a gig Saturday. Today I had to sit in the backyard, play slow and simple, watch the leaves fall, and realize it's all good and part of the journey. Ugh. Brent, that's what it's all about, man. You know? Like, the thing that keeps me doing any and all of this crazy stuff that I do, like teaching people music online or, like, whatever, like, really the only thing that keeps me coming back to it is, like, it just feels good to sit around and make noises on a little wooden box. Right? If you can like revel in that and just be like really happy with the fact that you're alive and healthy and wealthy enough to like sit in your backyard, watch leaves and make vibrations on a small wooden box, then what could be better? I like this. This is really great to hear from Leslie on this one because they are traveling. They live on the road, like out of their van, which I know all too well, Leslie. We often don't have routines being between places, but rituals help us stay grounded no matter where we are. Coffee, meditation, reading, visioning, meal prep, etc. I love all of that. And Leslie and Matt are definitely like pro mindfulness practitioners and stuff like that. So listen to every word she says out there, people. Because all of those things that she's mentioning, I know here on the channel we primarily talk about like meditation and other practices kind of related to that to help our musical growth. But seriously, you can practice, you know, being in the moment and slowing down with any of the things she just mentioned. Coffee, meditation, reading, visioning, meal prep. Reading, I think, is a really good one to practice this on, because how many people out there, like, I mean, if you engage with social media as much as like I do and stuff, which is limited, I find reading to be like tedious sometimes. And I used to love to read, you know, but I sit down and read a book and it's like my eyes want to wander and like, you know, the page isn't moving fast enough, you know, like all this kind of stuff. So I think sitting down and using reading could be a really good kind of way to like slow down, right? Just take every word, pronounce every syllable inside your mind, you know? That's great stuff. Joe says he's got one. I think a fun exercise is the opposite of meditation, latching onto a thought to see where it goes. Nice. For example, I started thinking about grid patterns recently, and it quickly evolved into this math problem about square numbers and ratios, and I went with it. For me, that was a great way to slow down. I like that, dude. That's funny because that's kind of like that mechanism you're talking about is like what Ethan Kross talks about in this chatter book, but only if that thought leads you to a negative place. I think like following a random thought into a good place like that is like a great thing, you know? That's what, like, in fact, the human brain was like designed to do. That's awesome, man. I think that's really cool. Oh, nice. Elliot says, all of this talk of sitting to practice runs counter to what I do. I stand all the time. Am I doing it all wrong? No way. I would say standing all the time is, in fact, like, maybe not better for your posture, if you're talking specifically about music practice, but I know that it's easier to, like for me, even right now, I just noticed as you're saying this, the lumbar curve in my back, like my leg is crossed on me, and the lumbar curve is gone, and all this kind of stuff. So, like, for me, sitting presents a bunch of challenges to, like, good posture. But standing, I think, is great, you know. I know Magnus Zetterlund, for those of you that don't know my buddy Magnus, he's kind of a stander, you know what I mean, when he practices and does things like that. Yeah, so, no, you're not doing it wrong, Elliot. You're doing it great. Yeah, and I'm with Joe on this one. Loco Joe says, if you spend most of your time playing standing up, then practicing that way makes much more sense. Absolutely. I find that practicing standing up definitely emulates like gig times way more. Yeah, Johnny says I stand till my back hurts. That's great. You're not a banjo player, Johnny. What's up with that? Brent's the only one who can complain about that, you know? Elliot says, I do stand all the time at band practice or at gigs. Nice. Great. Well, folks, this has kind of turned into a fun conversation. It's cool to see everybody's thoughts on like how you specifically slow down. And maybe by seeing some of the other people's kind of thoughts in the chat box, you have some inspiration for how to try a new way to slow down in your life, right? I know that I'm actually coming away with a couple. Yeah, I'm looking back up at Leslie's answers here. I'm definitely going to figure out a way to, like... I would love to know what Leslie means by visioning. That's one thing, a word that kind of, like, intrigued me in her response there. So, I don't know, Leslie, I know I'm asking you to type a bunch on, you know, like with your thumbs and all that kind of stuff. But if you feel like entertaining me, let me know what you mean by visioning and rituals and stuff like in your ritualistic way. Sorry, I put us down the banjo joke trajectory. I didn't mean to do that. Awesome. I know I asked Leslie to maybe type kind of like a long response here, so I might play a tune while she's doing that actually, but I'd be interested to know what Leslie means by visioning and, you know, ritualistic behavior there. Lewis is asking me, will I be on the call Wednesday? Yes, and for the call, he means the Mandolin Secrets member Q&A call. I will definitely be on there for a little bit of the call. I've got a lesson to teach that conflicts with half of it, but I'll be signing on. Nice, Leslie. Finally, yeah. Sorry for making you type that, but she says that was the short answer. So visioning is thinking about who I want to be and how I want to be in the world and embodying what that feels like. It's kind of an exercise in manifestation. I'm currently reading Gabby Bernstein. Nice. Yeah, I've definitely heard this under the term like manifestation. You know what I mean? Doing those kind of things. But I think that's cool. Yeah. I would love to know, we don't have to do this right now, obviously, but it would be interesting to see like what kind of ritual you could build around that in your daily schedule, right? And I'm just saying that in general to anyone who's on the stream out there. I kind of do a little bit of this in terms of like short-term and long-term goal setting, you know what I mean? Like I've got like this little paper that I keep track of some of those things on, to, you know, because it's like if you don't know where you're going, then any path will get you there. You know, if you've ever heard that kind of phrase before. So I started doing that a couple years ago and having these like yearly and 6 month and like 1 month kind of goals, like breaking it down from there. But yeah, I could see how doing that maybe more on a regular basis could help, because sometimes goals and priorities change in life, right? And that thing that you set in front of you, you might need a new path to get there just because of the immediate things in your life. That's cool, Leslie. Man, I'm so glad there are so many cool people that join this stream. Thanks so much for doing this, gang. I really appreciate you being here and chatting about this stuff. Letting me sit in my basement and play my mandolin and talk about how we should breathe more. Isn't this ridiculous? Like in the greatest kind of way. Like, let's just all recognize that too. Let's like be here and in this moment for a minute. Like we're all sitting here watching a bald guy in Columbus, Ohio play the electric mandolin and talk about breathing. It's good stuff. Well, folks, I'm going to play a tune. Oh, nice. Leslie says, we appreciate you. Thanks, Lewis, for sharing this with us. Yeah, thanks, Lewis. Lewis is the best. Yeah, I'm going to play another tune on this electric mandolin thingy. And then in the meantime, if you guys have any questions or thoughts, put them in the chat box there. That could be a fun one. Who wants to hear some It Don't Mean a Thing If It Ain't Got That Swing? I haven't played that in a while. That might be a fun one, though. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. 200 BPMs. Yeah. I think we got it, folks. I think we got it. It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. Type some stuff in the chat box. Let's talk when I get back. yeah, man. I love that team. Sweet. Oh, nice. We got some E-Mando chatter happening here. Oh, yeah. Joe asked if I'd seen that Polyphia cover by Sierra Hull on E-Mando. Absolutely, dude. Sierra's like one of my inspirations for E-Mando stuff. I'm so glad to see her playing that stuff on YouTube and whatnot. Yeah, she's killer. And I think she mostly plays that octave E-Mando, which is like... I'll probably have to add one to the collection one of these days. Elliot Cosmic, man. I love it. Oh, Elliot says, what am I playing that through? Funny enough, Elliot, I'm actually just playing it through the amp settings, one of the amp settings in Logic Pro on my MacBook. So for you, if you were interested in doing something like this, for anyone who's like in the Apple ecosystem out there, most of the amp settings that I use are available in GarageBand, the like free app that's available on iPads and iPhones and stuff like that. So you could totally... I see a lot of people doing that now. They're kind of like using their phone as like the amplifier and then taking a direct out of that just into a speaker, which is like, dude, I'm so into that. Like, because you can see it in the corner over there. My like, there it is. Directions are hard on camera. My old deluxe reverb over there. That thing is like 50 pounds, and I hate carrying that thing around. So if I can have like a light speaker and an iPhone to do it, like, that's where it's at. Nice. Aiden says, look at that right hand technique. I do, man, I hate to even watch a replay of that. It was probably terrible. Nestor says, wow. Johnny says that was great. Nice. Johnny asks a good question. How does the new Mando sound different from the one you built? The cool thing about this one, Johnny, is it's got a humbucker pickup in it. So 2 coils, right, to kind of reduce that 60 cycle hum that happens in the background. But it's honestly a little, if I'm like likening it to other sounds, to me the pickup on this one, even though it's a humbucker, sounds a lot like a Stratocaster in second position, which is like a mix of the bridge and the middle pickup. It's got that kind of like floppy, like jangly sound to it, you know, which I kind of dig. It's real nice. And if I move closer to like the neck joint, you know what I mean? It gets a little warmer for like jazz stuff. But then when you get closer to the bridge, like over the pickup, it's a little more aggressive. And I've got my tone rolled off a little bit here. But yeah, the other Mando is a single coil. It's a single coil pickup that I use mostly for that one, and it's a little like warmer and glassier, I would say. So yeah, this one's definitely built for I think a wider variety of situations than the other E-Mando that I built. That one was pretty much exclusively just for that like tiny more jazz stuff that I was doing. Nice. Yeah, gang. Well, I'm not seeing too many questions or anything popping up in the chat, but hopefully that was a good discussion tonight about some ways to kind of slow down. Like I said, thanks to Leslie out there for kind of spurring that thought in my mind earlier today. It kind of consumed me for the rest of the day, you know, which is funny, Greg, because it's a thought about like slowing down. So I had a lot of fast thoughts about how to slow down. Yeah. So thanks, Leslie. I appreciate you. And it might be good. I don't know. I'm announcing it here in front of everyone. I think, Leslie, we need to do some kind of collaboration. You know what I mean? We should have a live call with you guys on sometime. I can definitely make that happen with Skype and all that kind of stuff. So that'd be fun to kind of have you on the stream and have a little dialogue that wasn't through the chat box. If you were interested in that, let me know. Or if you want to be on my podcast, my new secret podcast that isn't out yet. All right. Oh, good to see Jacob. Better late than never, right, buddy? But thanks so much for joining in again, folks. I know I'm kind of meandering through the ending of this one now, but really appreciate you all. Like I said earlier, having a community of folks that are interested in talking about this stuff is really important to me, and I'm glad to know that it exists out there. And there'll be more work from me in that realm going forward, I think. Like I said, the Mindful Music Maker, Mandolin on the brain, podcast will be out sometime after the first of the year, probably early spring. So if you haven't had a chance, check out hazegriffin.com, sign up for the email list, and you'll get all the updates for when that does come out and all that kind of stuff. Aiden says secret podcast. Well, not a secret anymore, right, man? But so great to see some new faces out there tonight, and old friends alike. Aiden, great to see you, buddy. Leslie, Matt, always great to have you. Jacob, Johnny, Brent, Nestor. Nestor, we've got some chatting to do as well, my friend. I need to talk to you about this secret Mindful Music Maker podcast. Loco Joe, the mainstay. Who else did I miss? Elliot, of course. How could I forget Elliot? Yeah, great to see all you folks, though. Really appreciate you joining up. And I'm going to play some more electric mandolin. We'll catch you down the line, okay?